right, Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have the return of the great Robert Kidney. Now, this is a long one, so we're going to keep this intro short. Robert Kidney is the frontman to the Numbers Band. The Numbers Band has been playing for over 54 years, started in 1970 and still going strong. The Numbers Band musically cannot be stapled down to one genre. Rather, it is an amalgamation of all sorts of different influences. And I believe that's part of what makes the Numbers Band endlessly captivating. Robert is a guitarist, a singer-songwriter, and in this episode, we dive into a deep history of a specific era of the Numbers Band. And then we go into a impromptu writers group session in which Robert began to share about his lyric book that he's been working on, and we dive kind of deep into that rabbit hole of like writing and the process of writing. And at the time of this interview, I was really, and still am, diving into the world of becoming a better writer. So this was the exact conversation I needed to have, and I kind of become a active listener in that part of this interview. And what we talked about really, it still resonates with me, and I still think back on it. So I'm excited to share this conversation with you guys. If you hear what you like, if you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Robert and sharing their insights with you. And lastly, for anything Numbers Band, thenumbersband.com or the Numbers Band on Facebook is the way to see what's going on and stay updated. There's plenty of shows throughout the year. Make sure you catch one. And with that being said, this is part 2. Oh, and yeah, there's a part 1, and we dive into kind of an overall history and up till 2020 with their last record, Endure, right? So for more of a deep dive into that, check out part 1. But here we go. Here's part 2 with Robert Kidney. Okay. So I wanted to start with we didn't really mention it, but your brother. What was when did your guys' kind of like musical journeys cross? When did you start playing music together and taking it seriously?
Well, my brother, we grew up in a small house, and I was 7 years older, so I was quite a ways ahead of him in my life. And I became interested. I just happened to come up through the sort of the end of the second American folk music movement, which I would consider sort of a more commercialized version of the original. The original included Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, John Jacob Niles, all these, Elizabeth Cotton. You know what I'm saying? The original bluegrass music that they're now calling Americana this is like the third wave. It's really interesting. But anyway, so I got involved went along with that, and of course I was listening to everything else at the same time. But I bought a guitar, and just one of those people, probably a lot like you, that was kind of had no focus as what they're going to do with their life, coming in to the end of high school, where you're then. I don't know what it's like now, or even maybe your generation, but they were pounding you in the head about going to college, which turned out to be great for the colleges, but not so great for the people who had the educations, because there were no jobs for them. And but I was a horrible student. I was fired from high school. And I went to college because my mother offered to help me, but I was really trying to stay out of the war. So that's kind of the atmosphere. And then I got involved in playing the guitar at about 16. So all this is happening with me, but my brother is 7 years younger, and he's watching all this. And, we were both loved music, so he originally started with a drum. He told me, it's just ironic you bring this up. He just told me day before yesterday that he was shoveling a woman's driveway, and she got to know him, and she invited. He was doing chores for her. It was right across the street, actually, where I lived in the basement with my mother and father, and the house was owned by her sister. Well, all that moved away, and then he was started getting to know the woman who bought the house, and she was in the marching band and played, believe it or not, this huge drum, and so she gave him the drum, and he brought it home, and then my mother chased him out of the house and said, "Take that thing back over there." But he became interested in drums. So flash forward, he had a drum set and started playing drums and made friends with people, and they had these little groups and stuff. By the time I got back from the service, which was, I was 21. He had a set of drums in the basement of a larger house that my father and mother moved to because they were caring for his mother, my grandmother. And in the basement had a fairly nice, large basement. Well, he had a set of drums down there. And by then I was playing this acoustic guitar with a Diamond pickup out of a little Fender Champ amp. So we were down there and we started playing, and he would play the drums and I would play Elmore James type stuff and slide and just make a whole hell of a lot of noise. And, this was like 1968, 69, something like that. I always thought it was curious that we were doing this as a duet, and then those two fellows out of Akron, the Black Keys, were doing what we were doing then. I always thought it was ironic and wonderful, And so then I left home. I moved out of the house permanently, and because the band I got, I don't know whether I told you about how the band was formed and all that, but I had the band, and I was working in the Kove in Kent, and he got out of high school after the shootings on the campus and all that whole turmoil there, and he started working with more sophisticated bands and stopped playing the drums and started playing harmonica, and he brought up his band and that he had with high school friends that were now out of high school, and they were getting very sophisticated with their musical ability, and they showed up. I don't remember. I think I might have given him a hand up there with the owner of the Kove and allowed them to come in on like a Thursday or a Tuesday night or something to play with their band so they could get some experience. And they were playing around. I don't really remember a whole lot about it. It was I don't remember the name of the band. I might remember, and I heard him play the harmonica, and I could see that he was far beyond where I remembered him from so many years before, and was very serious. And he was singing, fronting the band and playing harmonica, which is essentially what I was doing. But I played also organ, Hammond organ, harmonica, and guitar with the band I was working with. And I had a really excellent lead guitar, so I was basically, as a guitar player, just supporting my voice, which I had been doing for many years, and then we do some Elmore James and I play slide. So, and I thought to myself, well, I really ought to be working with him if he's this serious. Okay. And his ability playing the harmonica and so forth. And so I began thinking along the lines of the two of us working together, and we discussed it. And, he was, desirous of doing this with me. And then I don't know whether you're interested in how that all came about, but then eventually we were working together.
Well, no, definitely, because it's interesting. It's interesting, like, I'm the older sibling.
No, it wasn't Terraplane. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. It was Terraplane? Was that the band? Or it wasn't?
No.
Okay.
I'm wrong.
But
another great local band, Terraplane.
But it's like when you're kind of doing your own thing and you're like trying to get.
I remember. I'm sorry.
Oh, what is it? Hit it.
City Lights, like the bookstore.
Yeah. Okay.
And then right before we started working together, this is it's not long, but it's kind of complex. But he was beginning, that band kind of unraveled. So he was starting his own band, and he was going to call it the Suicide Kings, and use as a logo the card with the sword, on the guy's head or whatever the hell it is. Anyway, what were you going to ask me? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm along on that journey. If you want to keep going down how it twined together, but as the older sibling, you do stuff, and like the younger siblings, sometimes you can tell they pick up on it and care, and sometimes they don't, and like so that's really cool to see that. Like, I mean, like that what you were doing was inspiring, and like, did you teach him some harmonica stuff to get going?
No, he learned. My brother's my brother's extremely talented.
I know. Yeah. You both are.
And music was in our family. It wasn't a big deal. It's not like, well, my mom and dad, we'd sit around, he'd play the banjo. Nothing like that. My mother played the piano, and her sister played the piano, and her brother played the piano. So she brought from her family, which is, they were from Appalachia in southern Ohio. My grandfather on her side was a coal miner, worked on the railroad type of thing. My father's side was more sophisticated. My grandfather was an associate at the Goodyear. He founded the safety department, and it's all very, anyway. But the music was there. You know what I mean? And when I was in high school, I loved to sing. So my music came from singing in church and choirs and high school, that kind of stuff. And then, like I said earlier, when the folk thing started happening, I had to get a guitar, and then, but I don't know whether I inspired him or not. I know that I had a record player and he didn't, because we couldn't afford more than one. You understand, it was my room, but I mean, I didn't teach him anything on the harmonica, but I did teach him some things on keyboard, on the organ, when we first started working together. I mean, he could already play piano. He could already play harmonica. He didn't play the guitar, and he didn't play the saxophone yet. So, I don't really know what I did teach him some keyboard stuff. But when he joined the band, see, one of the things that I wanted to do was, I knew he could play these instruments. I had no doubt he could do whatever he decided he wanted to do. And then I could focus on what I really wanted to do, which was to play the guitar and become more adept at what you call lead guitar, which isn't actually lead guitar, but I wanted to be able to play, that type of that type of guitar playing. I was basically a rhythm guitar player. So anyway, is that answer your question?
I mean, well, yeah, because like, because like when you're, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because everyone's perspective of music and their family is different, right? And how their family grew up and grows with it. And like, it seems like with you guys, how you're saying it was just something y'all did, and like, not necessarily being this is the way to do it, but he found his own way. So like so his band fizzles out, and then he's trying to start his own. And then when does he join what you have going on? When does he join the Numbers Band at that point? Is it just by showing up and playing those free?
Well, I have to start at the beginning. If you want me to tell the story of how this happened, I have to start at the beginning.
Well, let's start at let's get the track right.
Okay, so before I went to the service for a short time, I won't tell you how this happened, but I ended up in the Navy for about a year. Before that time, I was working with the guy I think we were speaking of earlier. His name was Gary Hawk. He was a harmonica player. And we played at La Kove. We opened for some people, and I opened by myself for Janice Ian, who was touring under her hit Society's Child. And then I played with, I opened for Linda Ronstadt and the Stone Ponies, different drum. I opened for, you don't know who they are, Jim Kweskin and the Jug Band, the Jim Kweskin Jug Band. And so, but so then I ended up in the Navy, but when I got back, I took my guitar with me and was playing in Chicago. And like we said, I saw all those people, blah, blah, blah. And I brought all this information and energy and desire with me when I came back. Okay. And when I came back from the service, I immediately went to visit my friend, Gary Hawk, who had formed a band called Pig Iron from the railroad. And I found out from him that they were going to be playing in Akron at the Art Museum, which was just a brick building, a pretty nondescript brick building, didn't have a lot going on in it, had a basement. And in the basement, they were having like a coffee house. And that drew people from the Berth, where I actually started playing in Akron, which had been closed by the Akron Police Department because of drugs. And really, there wasn't a serious amount of drugs there. They just wanted to squash this fucking hippie thing, you know. And so I showed up there because I had friends there and they were playing. So I got to hear Gary's band and meet with people that I hadn't seen for quite a while. And while I was there, I played a few songs before they went on. Okay? Got that? After the show was over, the bass player, his name was Greg Colbert, came out and asked me if the guys in the band wanted to talk to me. I went, oh, that would be nice. I get to meet everybody and talk to Gary, blah, blah. I went back in there to this sort of off room, but Gary wasn't there, and I didn't know, he was probably off somewhere. And I talked to them, and they invited me out to where they rehearsed in this guy's basement in Wadsworth, Ohio. So I drove out there. The next night they rehearsed and expected to, I thought it would be fun, you know, to maybe sit in again with them and, you know, play with Gary, and it would be great. And I walked into the room and he had quit the band. So they had no front man. He said he had told them he was moving to Kent and going to go to the university there. He was done with the band. And he was from Wadsworth. They were all from Wadsworth. And so they had no front man. And they asked me if I would front the band. So the Numbers Band, called Pig Iron, was given to me. And I changed the name, and I started working with this band, and several members quit because they couldn't stand me, because I was very demanding. And I knew how to make this blues. That's what they were playing, blues. But I had just come from fucking Chicago. You know what I'm saying? I brought this knowledge with me. And also listening hours and hours and hours of listening to rural blues and urban blues. And it was a fascinating music to me. And so I think it's simply because of how it affected me emotionally. And that's a whole nother discussion. But so I took that band, all right, to Kent. We were playing around and actually playing to empty rooms. One of the rooms was owned by a guy who owned the Kove in Kent. He had this sort of like a satellite bar out in Wadsworth. So we were playing there to like 8 people, okay? And about that time, that's when Terry Hynde, I brought him into the band. My brother was not in the band. So we brought this band, and we were invited. We were playing a place called the Portage Iron Steelworks, and these 2 guys come walking up and say, hey, we're going to have a battle of the bands. This is directly after the shootings. So when the students were killed at Kent State University, the town shut down, and the entertainment business in Kent shut down. And the Kove, which was one of the biggest dance clubs in Kent, their house band was getting the hell out because there was no business anyway. The whole place was just dead. You understand? And for good reason. Everybody was scared shitless, and it was kind of like a mini police state in a lot of ways. And so, I mean, the police department was done with hippies and this whole thing. So there was like a real clampdown going on. So that band was leaving, and the owner sent people out to Talent Scout to collect a bunch of bands to come and have an actual battle of the bands in the Kove, one all-nighter, so that all these bands would have an opportunity to play for an audience which was invited to the club for free, so that they could gauge what these people enjoyed and then pick a band to replace the band that was leaving. Okay? So it was an actual, true battle of the bands. It wasn't for a guitar with your name on it or a T-shirt. It was a battle for work. Okay? And I was a construction worker. I am not an educated man. I'm a construction worker. I poured concrete. I did blacktop. I did carpentry. I worked in factories. And when I got back from the service, I was already working. Okay? So, but the band, I would work all day and work. I loved this music. Okay? It was my only real passion. The only thing I felt it was the only thing I was alive for. So we had an opportunity, and the band we were pretty highly developed by then. We had been playing for probably 8 or 9 months, maybe a year, 70 to 69, 70. Yeah, probably almost a year. So we brought what we did to the Kove that night, to the Battle of the Bands. And a couple of bands played, then it was our turn, and we had our opportunity. And the owner and the talent people that were just friends of his, it's a long story, there were like 5 or 6 of them. They were looking for a fucking house band. They got a problem, okay? The bar's going to fold if they don't get some people in here. And so it was our turn. We got up on stage, And the place it was a good sized place. There was probably about 500-600 people in this place. It was just stacked with people because it was free, right? And I remember having my back to the audience, and I picked up my harmonica and my microphone, and I thought to myself, we're going to take this place tonight. We're going to take it. We're going to own it. And I turned around and started the first song. And at the end of it, the people went berserk. Because I think I offered a primal force that was beyond what the music was. And that's what they want. They want to feel this primal force. And we became the house band.
And also, I would say when you perform, when you sing, when you speak, I feel everything you say is backed up 100% by how you feel. And like I feel it's honest and sincere. And like when I've seen you play live, when I've seen the videos, when I've listened to the records and talking with you, that is what comes across. And so along with the primal like excitement of the band, with that on top of it, I definitely could understand how you would take the room.
Well, we weren't parrots. I guess that's kind of mean. I don't mean to be mean, but I have a different opinion of why you should be playing music. You should be making a contribution to it yourself. And although I couldn't define that well then because I was so inexperienced, I did bring the 4 years of experience that I had in coffee houses and small rooms with me when I took the stage. These other fuckers didn't. I had it. Nobody in the room had that experience of standing on stage alone, okay, and holding an audience or attempting to. It's pretty frightening. And so I brought a lot of that with me. Plus, I had this fucking desire, especially after that night, that I saw an exit out of the construction industry. Okay? If I could make this work the way it appeared to be working, I wouldn't have to go back. And in that moment, it made me separate from anybody I worked with, is that I had a fear of going back to the street. And I had found a way out. No one was going to take it from me. No one. And I could be ruthless. Okay? So, fast forward. That band played for about a year and then took a break, and the drummer at the time refused to grow through the music that we were playing into something else, and I was moving on, playing the blues, but also wanting to play different styles and beginning to toy around with writing songs in terms of an ensemble. And so I had to get another drummer. And I've also decided, God, this is so fucking complicated. I get into this shit and it's just so tangled up. But I was living in Akron, and the Kove was like, we were having blues guys come in from Chicago because the bass player and the owner got together and decided, the bass player was, he was a real sort of a promoter in a way. And they thought, well, let's have some blues guys come in for Chicago. And then they came to me, well, who should we have? And I gave them advice, blah, 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 blah. So I started inviting people that I remembered seeing, like Hound Dog Taylor, and, you know, people I knew. I knew all these, who they were. I didn't know all of them personally or anything like that, but I certainly had heard them. And if I hadn't heard them, I heard them on record. So you present me with a list of people, I can look at the list, him. You know, you dig what I mean? And then we're like opening for them. So it's this. It all followed me there. Okay.
Yeah.
And so there was a crisis point where Kent is happening, Akron is not. It's just not happening. Kent is happening. So I wanted to move to Kent, and that created a problem. So now we have a new drummer in the same band. Some of the band members, me, Terry, and a fellow named Hank Smith, we wanted to live in Kent. Well, the bass player by then, we had opened a store, him and I, called Cheap Thrills Records in Akron, and it was very successful. We were selling records for like $3, very low profit, but it was very popular. And he didn't want to leave Akron. He disagreed and wanted me. He became like a boss. He was trying to tell me what I was going to do. He wanted me living in Akron. We'll never make it big out of Kent, which I thought was ludicrous considering Joe Walsh had just walked out of Kent. And I can't think of the other band. But anyway, so there was this schism that happened where, and besides, people were starting to get too loaded, and he was getting drunk because he worked all week and was showing up and would become unable to play. And, you know, you can't have that. I can't have it. I'm running this band like I would run a crew to keep the band holding the audience, which is keeping me off the fucking street. So whatever it took, that's what it was. So this was a crew. You have a job. You're getting fucking paid. Do it. You understand what I meant? So this created a problem. Well, it ended up, I left those people behind and moved in and started working with a group of gentlemen who lived in Kent. And the drummer that I replaced the guy who left with was from Kent, quite talented. His name is Rod Reisman. Still plays. Worked with reggae groups. I can't think of anything right now.
Carlos Jones and
yeah.
Those guys?
All in
Okay.
characters, man.
Yeah.
Great drummer. And I had, at the time, I got another guitar player, a great bass player. All these cats lived in Kent. And so we're playing. And we're still there, and the fucking audience is loving it, and things are rolling along. You understand what I'm saying? But then people began to change in their attitude about who they were and what they did and what they thought of themselves. They became sort of entranced by adoration and the potential for success in the music industry and all these things. And all of a sudden the blues was boring, and I began having this problem with people, and you know, some of them didn't like the blues in the first place. It was beneath them, in other words, too simple. But they came down and played their fucking instruments because they were playing a music they looked down upon in front of 500 people and were getting paid. Why leave that just because you were better than the music you were playing? Okay? So everybody started developing an agenda. And there's a whole bunch of other history that I'm going to skip over. So that's when this thing appeared with my brother, right at the same time. Okay? So I got more, and I was also high a lot. You could smoke drugs the rest of your life and never smoke all the pot I smoked during this period. And was eating mushrooms, and so that made me volatile anyway. Okay? So now I see an opportunity, and my brother and I are getting closer and closer to coming together and working together. So I presented that, and also at the same time, I was beginning to consider original music. I didn't want to continue playing the blues because I felt it's okay, but what about the contribution? Why? And and the woman I was living with was busting me because she was an artist herself. And she was like, somewhat of a moral compass in that sense as well. Where is your contribution? That's not the way she defined it. And she had her own agenda, but I began to see it like it was always kind of, I wrote original songs, but they were pretty much derivative. And then I began to see, well, where's my contribution? Because quickly you can look at music in a couple of different ways. To oversimplify, there's two ways to look at music. One, what will it give me? And two, what is it? What is music? What can I get from it? Or what can I give it as an art form? Music is ancient. Ancient. It's primal. It's ancient. It is probably the first thing that mankind did outside, possibly even before language. Which is my sort of, I don't know what the word is, theory, but so I was that way. I was not looking at what the music can get me. I was looking more at what it is. It's like mysterious and wonderful, and and I admired people. Don't think I didn't, but it wasn't like I was going for the fucking brass ring. It was not my concern. It was not my objective. If it happened, great. If it didn't, okay. I still have this music. You understand? Well, all of this shit began to like boil to the surface and became very, very drugs and what I wanted and what everybody else wanted and all this stuff. And it just it turned into this sort of toxic atmosphere, which I wasn't going to tolerate. So I saw through my brother and with my brother an opportunity to, change the dynamic. Original music, my brother, change the dynamic, get out of where we were. Let's move somewhere forward. And I knew that there were certain members in the band that I felt would follow me. And so we were rehearsing one day, and I said, I'd like to put my brother in the band and maybe possibly move further into original music. And assuming that the drummer and a couple of these other characters that I got along so well with would follow me. Well, they didn't. So now I had nobody. I was just loaded. Okay. And so I talked to my brother, and my brother had been working on this band I told you about earlier. I think it's the Suicide Kings or the King of Hearts or something, like a pretty nice title. And I showed up at their rehearsal, okay, and took the band because I had a stage, I had an audience, they could play. I'm going to take you guys, and in 3 days we're going to be on this stage, so we're going to have to work pretty hard, okay. And the funny thing is the bass player was a guy I had fired about 4 months earlier. Huh. And the look on his face was so precious. It was probably one of the greatest moments of his life.
Yeah.
Huh?
I said, yeah.
Because here he is getting his retribution for me firing him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I moved by that. Get on the stage. Let's play. I don't want to lose this spot. And we went down there, and the fucking audience was like stunned. Who are these people, and what are they doing? I only recognized one guy. And I just took the stage and went back to work, and we lost business. People didn't come anymore. We went through a summer of real treacherous work and worry because the audience was drifting away. And by fall, if it is any good, we're going to get shit canned, and I'll be back on the street. But by fall, two of the members, one guy quit, and I never replaced him, so it went to a quartet. And then the drummer quit. And right about that time, the drummer I hoped had followed me was tired of working in a factory, even though he could have gone on a doctorate. He was really a brilliant guy, but he was working in a factory to make money during the summer. Well, he was pretty fed up with that. When I invited him to come back and play, he was more than happy to come back and play. And right before that, one of the horn players that I left wasn't doing anything except smoking pot. And he had a wife and a child and was struggling. And he was really happy to come back. In fact, he came back before the other drummer finally quit. So pretty soon, this band began to reform, and some of the members that were in the band, with all their experience that they had gained by working with me in the Kove for so many years, they brought this heat. You follow what I'm saying? They brought this confidence. So this band, which was a good band, began to like, rekindle itself, and the fire started getting hot again, and the confidence was there. And then we added Mike Stacy on guitar, and blah blah blah. And then Terry came back, and all of a sudden we had a band there that was and in the meantime, my brother's playing harmonica, and he picked up the saxophone, and we're playing keyboards, and I'm focusing on vocals and guitar, and this band is beginning to like form into a brick wall of music. And I'm writing songs, okay? And the band's reputation is spreading through the public. Because back then, you had posters you put on a phone pole. That was it. There was no Facebook or this stuff you have now. Nothing. You got nothing. You don't get in the Scene magazine, nobody knows you exist. So anyhow, we're developing, and that's what. And you want me to continue? All right. So we're getting stronger and stronger. And then we won a contest. Between then and the contest, this guy shows up. He loves the band. He's great. We're smoking pot together, blah, blah, blah. His name is Jim Mock, blah, blah, blah. And, Jim Mock, whoa, nice guy. Well, I find out Jim Mock is one of the people that booked the old Agora. He didn't tell me that. I didn't know that. And we were kind of buddies. And he says, listen, I'm going to get you a spot up at a place called The Mistake, which is in the basement of the old Agora. So we play there, blah, blah, blah. It's no big deal. A few people come, blah, blah, blah. Well, then all of a sudden, he becomes the booker of the Agora. He starts booking us in the Agora, which was the biggest club in Cleveland. And it just came to me. It was given to me.
Yeah.
And the band, an opportunity. So we're up there, we're doing what we do, and people goes, what the fuck is this? Because by then we're doing the music you hear on that first record. And they're going, what the fuck is this? Some of them liked it, some of them didn't. But we had this huge following in Kent that would follow us up to the Agora. So the core of the audience was going nuts, and the rest of them, they're scratching their heads. Some people are going, hey, man, we can't get a good guitar sound here. You need to play power chords, man. I can't get your guitar sound, man. You need to play power chords. And that drummer's really fucking busy, man. Oh, and like, it was just so sickening. I wanted, just wanted to, I just wanted to break a jaw. That's all.
Yeah.
Just one, but I couldn't. But that's who I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am not this fucking guy that wants to kiss ass and make it. I just want to play this fucking music. Leave me the fuck alone. Okay. So all of a sudden we won a contest. And I have no idea how that happened. We are the best blues band in Cleveland. And I think it had something to do with Jim Mock and the scene. Working it. Not cheating, working it. Well, all of a sudden Jim Mock comes to me and says, you won this contest. Would you like to do a live record at the Agora? And the Agora at the time was like, had just broke several bands. David Bowie, for one, okay? Think about it. We're walking into this thing. WMMS is king of the world. They went from like a bunch of potheads doing drugs, playing the Grateful Dead, to being the most powerful record or on the radio station in Cleveland, because the money happened. Okay, money got involved, and cats were making money, and they were making a living, and they began to see the click, 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 click. The music industry was sort of like some kind of poisonous vine was coming in, and that's the way I look at it. It went from cats that were playing stuff like, not that I care for it, Maggot Brain. Mm-hmm. That went on. How long did that, that thing?
Yeah.
Maggot Brain. It was how long was it?
What, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes?
Yeah. Well, they were playing this shit back to back, playing the entire Grateful Dead album. People were going nuts. It was just free form. And the music industry is looking at this going, hey, there's some fucking money there. Well, how do we make this work? We gotta get in there, man. Gotta get our paws in there. And they did. And then all of a sudden, so we're offered this record. So we went and recorded it. Okay. We recorded it. It was a huge night. And we recorded the album. And I went upstairs and I'm listening to it. And I went, okay. And he said, yeah, we recorded it in stereo. I said, you recorded it in stereo? Well, what the fuck good is that? How am I going to mix this? I can't mix this. What do you want me to do? Boost the bass? This is a fucking waste of time. Why did you do this? And this is like the Agora I can't remember what it was called. And here's this guy telling them, fuck you, all right? This is bullshit. You said you're going to record an album of my band. I can't mix it. This is a waste of fucking time. Now, why am I like that? Because I want the best for my people. Because I want the fucking best for my business.
Right.
Because I don't want to go back to the fucking street.
Right.
So I said, well, we're going to have to record it. We got to re-record this whole fucking thing. We're going to have to do this all over again. So Jim Mock is standing there shitting his pants because he's going to have to go back to Henry LeConte, who you don't want to fuck with him, okay? He's a power broker in Cleveland. But he talked Henry into letting us on I love Henry LeConte. There would be no Jimmy Bell without Jim Mock and Henry LeConte. Let's say that, okay? And so he lets us do it again. Now we're on stage, getting ready to go re-record the record, okay? And the day before the show, my bass player ends up in the emergency room. He thought he had appendicitis. He had, oh shit, I can't think of the name of the intestinal inflammation. Okay, so I got no bass player. I called cancel the show. Cancel the show. So they had to cancel the show. And Muck, or Jimmy. Jimmy comes back, and he was such a good guy. I loved him a lot. And we were both fucking high all the time. You know, he's looking at me with these bloodshot eyes. What the fuck are you doing now? I said, well, give me another chance. Okay? And he did. He went back to Henry a third time. And Henry said, these fuckers are crazy, but I've got an investment here. People are expecting something. They will open for Bob Marley. That's it. We'll record whatever happens on 16 track. That's the end. This is it. Okay? So my blues father there laid it down, and I don't blame him. It's so funny, David. I look back at this shit and I'm going, what the fuck were they thinking about me? You know what I'm saying? So we walked out on stage to do the show before Bob Marley. And my horn player, one of them comes up, who was like an astrology type guy, says, I did our star charts. We're playing, the stars are really bad. Our chart was really bad for tonight. And I looked and I said, well, then we're going to have to play against the stars. We're going against the stars. Go get your fucking horn on and let's go. And we played, and that is the album you hear. In front of poor Bob Marley's audience. They come to hear reggae. Listen to Bob Marley and then listen to what we play. It's like you go to a restaurant and you order Italian food and you get chop suey. What the fuck is this? And I had no idea, man. I'll tell you the truth. This is the fucking truth. In fact, this has all come back to me recently because of what's going on around me right now, with lots of different stuff that's happening around the band and in Akron and shit. It's all like been dredged back up, and I'm rethinking it at 76. And when I heard that recording in the studio, what the fuck was the name of that studio? I don't remember. It was up above the old Agora. There was a radio station, and John Neebe was the engineer who helped us mix it. I'd never heard it before. I had no idea, nor did anyone else. We had never been in the studio before. We had never heard ourselves recorded before. People would record us in the Kove. I never listened to them, but I had no idea what these songs sounded like other than playing them. And, you know, and the composition and so on and so forth. And I heard this music for the first time. I'd never heard myself sing before. Nothing. And we put it out on a record, okay, as it was, including the drum error, including everybody's mistakes, including whatever you want to say about how I sing, including the wackiness of the music, everything naked for your enjoyment. And the fucking WMMS radio, who was going to come out and really back us up on this, they listened to it. They said, holy shit, get this out of here. Get the fuck out of here with this shit. What are you doing? What is this? I remember the station manager had a meeting with her. She was going to, you know, I'm not going to drop names. I'm not going to do it. You know, all these people. It's like one of the main disc jockeys said, well, we can't play this shit on the radio. They didn't get a response. Of course we didn't get much of a response. It was what's Bob Marley's audience. What the fuck? Why would they respond? And what's that got to do with anything, you know? Whether they play it or and then, so I'm back in heaven. I'm having the meeting with this woman, And she's saying, well, we've been playing your record, but nobody is responding to it except your fanatics. Who else would respond? The people that know us in Cleveland are going to call in. Who else? I guess they were expecting massive amounts of, this is great. It isn't great. It isn't great. It's fucking crazy, okay? And she handed me this. This is who we've decided to back. And she handed me a 45. And on the cover of the 45 was this guy. And he kind of looked like Elvis Presley. And I'm saying, Jesus, look at that. He's wearing an Elvis haircut with ducks and the whole fucking thing. He's, wow, he's got a Cobra haircut. Wow, what the fuck is this? This is like 1950 again. That's what I'm thinking. And I looked at the record and it's like, Johnny Cougar. It hurts so good. That was the end.
That was a ride, man. And like, what kind of baffles me is when I listen to your records, I hear the authentic like flavors of blues, but done in an original way. Like I hear that contribution to the folklore of music in your own way, using what you heard around you, and like it kind of baffles. I mean, I guess radio's a specific thing, and there's a bunch of the bullshit going around with the industry and what they expect certain things are supposed to look like and whatever. But like there's this pure authenticness to the Numbers Band's music that even like reggae and Bob Marley are two different flavors, but the idea that a person who has their own voice and is saying what they believe in, I think carries over with, if I had to draw a tie between you and Bob Marley, that would be it, right? So like, it kind of baffles my mind that like people had trouble catching on to that.
Well, here's the reason. My voice is not attractive, and the music was extremely complicated. Reggae is very straightforward, and Bob Marley's got a great voice. And the reason he has a great voice is he had been in the studio a lot and heard how shitty he was singing and fixed it. Okay? I don't think, there are a few people, maybe Aretha, the first time she went in, knocked it out of the park, but she was also raised in the church. And in the church, it's a fucking discipline, okay? If you sing in the church, it's a discipline. You don't just walk up there and bury your soul. You can walk up there and bury your soul, but you better have your shit together as a vocalist. Nobody wants to hear it. Mm-hmm. But that's not me. I wasn't like that. I was just raw. Like I said, I had never heard myself sing before.
That's wild.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And I remember some cat brought me a whole bunch of old tapes that he had transferred about 6 years ago of performances that we were doing in the Kove. In 1970, he recorded us from 1970 through 74 when my brother joined. And I'm listening to this stuff and I'm going, God, these fucking solos go on forever. This is ridiculous. And even in that, some of the stuff in the original recording that became Jimmy Bell, some of the solos in songs that didn't make it to the record were long. And I started getting critical of it. And then I went, what the fuck are you being critical for? What is your problem? You're turning into everybody else. And that changed my perspective. And I realized something pretty dramatic. And that's that we were learning to play our instruments in public. I wasn't a guitar player when I walked on the stage. I supported my vocal. I didn't play solos and shit like that. I just started doing it. And a lot of us were learning to play in front of people. That's why the solos were so long. We were trying to find something. And it took a while. to find it. Then when we found it, that took us one step further into our development as a soloist, you see. So you take that space and you move it again. But it's also like, kind of like, I don't know, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, you know. See, and so that was why the solos were so long. It wasn't arrogance or ego or any of that shit. It was just the way, you know, we were learning. Some of it, and some of the musicians were pretty highly developed, so there might have we were also fucking high and blah blah blah. But I mean, in terms of what I'm hearing, it's just this. We were learning on stage, and we were doing it on that Jimmy Bell record that you're listening to. That you listen to, you're hearing me especially play the guitar in the moment. Well, that's like, you know, that's a jazz attitude. That's not a top 40 attitude. So we were just wrong and remain wrong forever. Into eternity, we will be wrong about what we're doing because it still isn't right. In fact, it's kind of like went all the way back. I mean, it's gone all the way back to what it was when I was a kid. I mean, you know, the record industry owns everybody now. That's what they always wanted. They got their way. Who's making money on Spotify?
Definitely.
You?
Nope.
Not me.
Oh, man. Yeah, I just...
And on it goes. I mean, it's like I compare myself these days to the guy at the carnival at the county fair who makes funnel cakes. Now you can't even sell a CD because the automobile industry doesn't put them in cars. So what does that mean? It means that the music that people make is in the air. And if you want to listen to it, you need something to take it out of the air. But there's no records to buy. There's no CD. There is no object. It does not exist. It's just an electronic thing. So I'm the guy at the funnel cake stand with my funnel cakes, and I got no way to get flour. I can't make funnel cakes. And if I do, no one eats them. If you understand that.
Mm-hmm. No, I do. I get it, man.
A guy like me and a guy like you, 10 years ago, we made a CD, we sold it, and that money went right in our pocket. And if it took you $1.50 to make a CD and you sold it for $10, everybody in the band and in your organization, or if you're a solo act, you put that money in your pocket. It's gone. So a guy like you and a guy like me, we can't make money anymore. It won't happen. I sell CDs, I sell LPs, and the big vinyl movement and all that. You know, it's all very sort of like it's lame. All right. So if a band like I'm thinking about going back in the studio now because we have this music, I have to go in and do it for historical purposes. That's the only reason you would do it. I'm not putting my shit on Bandcamp because they're not going to pay me nothing. They don't even report to BMI because no one's doing anything about it. I got shit on Bandcamp. I get 0.0000007 cents for one play. So if I just to shoot it by you, if I got a song and it gets played 200,000 times, I get $200 for a life's work.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to get a lot of plays, man.
What?
To get those plays like that, man. It's to be living off every third of a penny. It's like the streaming thing is a completely.
And now I think it's Spotify is like cutting everybody's throat. It used to be all the money went in a pot and they divided up according to how to play. How many plays you got? If you got one play, you got less than a penny, whatever. I mean, it's on paper. Maybe if you get 10 more plays, you get a penny. But at least you were getting something. Now, if you don't get a certain amount of plays, you know shit. They don't even bother with you.
Yeah.
And no one's doing anything about it because nobody fucking cares. And it's gone, baby. They're not putting CD players in cars. It's like my conspiracy theory is that the record industry and the automobile industry got together and they said, hey, let's just shut this down. I'm shut it down. Fuck it. Why bother? But that's just crackpot bullshit, you know.
Yeah, but you know, it's so much of like how people consume music is that thing, right? Is it putting the CD in the car and being able to listen to it? Like, I don't think there was vinyl players in cars, and that's why we had cassettes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, maybe there's some, but every bump, I'd imagine you'd be skipping your way home.
That's where the tape player came from.
Right. So
they don't even exist anymore.
you get a kick out of this for my students at work. The PE teacher's like, show this to the kids to ask what they think, and it was an 8-track of it was Meatloaf, 8-track of Meatloaf, right? Bad out of hell. And I would show it to the kids. I'm like, you guys know what this is? And like most of them were like, that's an Atari game. Like,
exactly. Well, you're getting old, man. I am old.
But yeah,
here's a nice piece of trivia for you. Meatloaf did Jimmy Bell.
Really?
On his first record. Yeah. Because his producer, who was from Cleveland, this guy I knew, who was like our manager, he worked in a restaurant. He was managing a restaurant, and I can't remember the fucking guy's name. Came there, so he dropped the Jimmy Bell album on him, thinking that there's a possibility this guy will go, oh wow, this is great. Let's make him famous. What he did was he just gave Meatloaf Jimmy Bell and had Meatloaf do Jimmy Bell. You can hear it. Just type it in. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Whoa. No, I didn't know that existed. That's crazy. Like, so as a takeaway, like, I mean, you've heard a couple people cover your stuff. What was that like as far as like?
It ain't my stuff. Jimmy Bell is a folk blues, it's a rural blues song that I first heard by a guy named David Bray, who was in a trio called Kerner, Ray, and Glover. They were 3 guys from Minneapolis, and they put out a bunch of records. I think it was on Folkways or Vanguard or one of those labels. They were acoustic cats, and they played rural blues, and they wrote some of their own stuff. It was like one guy, they were vocalists, and they had a harmonica player. It was mainly just like kind of like a folk thing. And, you know, it's all very dated. They were singing in blackface and shit. And because it was like a phonic thing. And you listen to something, and then when you try to reinvent it, it comes through you. It's kind of like, I don't know if the Beatles were aware when they were singing, you know, Mr. Postman and some of the shit they did that was in American form, that all of a sudden their British accents disappeared. I don't think they did that on purpose. I think it was just phonics. But I could be wrong. I certainly wasn't aware of it. I was shocked but like I said, I didn't listen to myself. I had no idea what I was doing. I just played. Yeah, you want to record me? Yeah. I never listened to it. I wasn't in a big hurry to hear myself. I didn't care. I had other things I was doing, you know?
And like, it strikes me as strange because your voice, when I hear you sing, like I hear like there's this, like I said before, there's this like, you're giving, I feel like when you speak, I hear every word you're saying, like you mean that. And like there's this authenticity and power behind it that I don't hear with a lot of other singers, and like, so it strikes me as strange that you were, I get, but not really, because we're all like insecure about our voice to some degree, you know. Sorry. It strikes me as strange because we're all, like insecure about our voice to some degree. So like, and I get, the more you listen to it, the more you can be like, oh, I say whatever vowel strange, I should change that, and that only comes from like critically listening to
I think you
things
should
like that.
listen to yourself critically. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's an art form.
Right.
But, if you want to, if you hear yourself doing anything you don't like, I mean, that's a fucking problem. It's like, if you're an educator, if you're educated in America, what do they teach you? They didn't teach you anything other than the fact you're making a mistake. That's what they teach you. That's what you learn, that you're making mistakes. So everybody is afraid to make a mistake. But that's where the art is. It's in the error. And you listen to yourself sing and you don't like what you're doing, fix it. Then it's more real. Because you believe in what you're doing more. And if you're blessed, you develop a perspective like, am I changing? My latest mantra is, who are you trying to please and why? Okay? It's a good question because there are some people you should try to please. But you have to know why. If you're trying to please somebody, you need to know why. If you're trying to please somebody and the reason is to make a buck and that's not your value, well, then don't do it. If you're trying to please somebody to make a buck, be sure you do it. It's not a moral question. It's just a question you need to understand. I don't have any problem with people getting rich on money. I don't do it. What I don't think is right is for them to give me shit. Because I don't.
Developing your own type of business, which you have a lot of interpersonal or in-person interactions that you need. I can see where those two questions are, you know what I mean? To make sure your vision is clear, and like whomever you're working with, to make that happen on both ends. Those are two important questions to be asking before, while navigating these interactions.
Well, I think it's true. I don't think it's just saying. I mean, I've been working for the last 8 years on a book of lyric. At 8 years. And what took up the time was commentary. My wife suggested, well, why did you explain why I wrote that song? And that led me into doing something I'd never done, which is to write prose. And then that led me to learning how to write prose. And so I took the same approach to writing prose as I did to writing a lyric, as I do to composing, as I do to painting, as I do to whatever I do. I brought who I am to it, and man, it's all fucked up.
It's interesting you bring that up because I saw that on the site and I wanted to ask you about that. To dive into each one of those kind of factions of like writing, when I listen to any of your songs, there's this narrative that is carried throughout a song that, in like every other song I've listened to, I've never really heard it done in the way you do it. And I kind of wanted to
Say that again. I didn't hear.
Sorry. No, it's okay. Like when you write songs, right? I hear the narrative done in a way that I've never heard before in any other type of any other music, right? You have like this whole song's kind of structured in trailing this narrative, And part of what like draws me into your music is that. And I kind of wanted to like pick your brain about like when you kind of started writing songs and lyrics like that. Do you do two separate interactions? Like, are you writing lyrics and then putting it to music? Do you have a like? Can you walk me a little bit through some of like your processes as far as
Oh, you're leading
songwriting?
me to my favorite story.
All right, sweet.
One of them, I was out at my aunt's house. I got to check my battery here. Okay. I was out at my aunt's house. Okay. And my cousin's daughter was playing in the hallway. She was at the time about 5. Okay. And I'm on my way to take a piss. And I'm walking by her, and she's in the middle of the hall with a boat that was like a, you know, like a cabin cruiser type boat. And on top of the boat was a Barbie. And the Barbie was as long as the boat. Okay. And she was playing with the boat. Barbie was riding the boat. And I looked at it, I said, wow, that Barbie looks a little too big for the boat. And she looked up at me and said, there are no rules in the world of play. And I went, wow, I just got myself put in my place by this little 5-year-old. I never forgot it. So, and I realized exactly what she meant, because at the time I was like, I don't know, 30. But anyway, there are no rules in the way I do things. That way, what I do is unlimited. I do a lot of my songs come from what I call guitar inventions. I'll invent something on the instrument that I think serves a purpose, and I find exciting and interesting for myself, hoping that if it's developed, the audience will enjoy it. Okay? That's the only purpose I have. And so I'll write a lyric to it. And the way I write the lyric to it is, you're probably familiar with this, a lot of people do it, that they even talk about it in this, I guess, from what I was told in the Beatles documentary, how John Lennon or Paul McCartney is telling George Harrison to, sing in gibberish over the top of what you do. And I have to do it and I had to do it almost from the very beginning, because when I'm doing my guitar, it comes out of the blues and it's extremely complicated, and you can't just sing over it. You have to, the vocal has to be woven into the guitar part, or you fuck the guitar part up. You follow what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think a lot.
And so what I'll do, if I'm in that, if I'm working in that way, is I will sing gibberish over the top just to get some phraseology that works with what I'm singing, and then see where that takes me. Another way I'll write is, if I'm pissed off about something, I'll write a song about it. Another way I write is if I think the show itself needs a rocker, for example. So I'll sit down and start working and trying to come up with a new song that will, give the audience something to think about. And that is the tradition of Broadway, which I admire greatly. These cats on Broadway, the author of the script and the stage scene in a Broadway musical brings it to, whoever you want, Rodgers and Hart or Hammerstein or Harold Arlen, whoever's going to write it, and say, okay, this song, this is like, we're going to call this South Pacific. And in the middle of the song, in the middle of it, we have to have a song that stops the show. This is where we want to stop the show. We want to bring the audience to their feet at this point in the dialogue, and they sit down and write the fucking song. And it does exactly what they are told they need to do. And I found that pretty amazing. Now, that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but it kind of defines that type of songwriting, if you understand what I mean.
No, definitely, because like when the whole thing is the show, right? There needs to be the roller coaster of the show's narrative along with the song's narrative.
Right. And so I admire that. I'm not trying to do that, but that would be another impetus of me writing a song. And so sometimes a lyric will come into my head, or an idea for a lyric will come into my head. And all these things are all there, and I use all of them. So in other words, I don't have a starting point. I have 5 starting points. So there are no rules in the world of songwriting, for me anyway. And the one rule I don't follow is, how can I make this into a hit? I don't start from that perspective. And some people do, and they're very good at it. And that's fine. They should do that. I'm not that person. That's all. Did that answer your question?
No, most definitely. And the no rules in play. I love that. That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I love that. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it's total freedom. And then, the educational system certainly beats that the fuck out of them. Oh, yes, there are. There are rules. And if you don't follow them, you're going to get an F.
Like standardized anything, there you have it. You know what I mean? As soon as that's in play, any chance to kind of shine whatever wild way someone picks up on something is put out. You know what I mean? Like, and so I guess another. So with this lyric book, also writing commentary on that. That's a different and coming up with philosophical bites to accompany it. As far as like, how's that as doing that? Like, how's the reflection upon what you've written and trying to like kind of capsulate it in a way people can read and kind of like gleam into that part of what you were going through in this process that doesn't necessarily have.
I don't do that. That's not what I do. That's why I said it's all fucked up.
Okay.
My lovely wife Janet suggested I didn't know how to type when I started making this book. First of all, I had to learn how. She's not going to type it because it'll never get done, and we would end up probably being divorced. So I knew I had to learn to type. So I learned it, and then I got all my lyrics typed up. I said, "It's done." And she said, "Well, what about why don't you write some commentary?" And I blew up. I said, "What the fuck do you mean? Write a commentary about songs?" She said, "Yeah. Like, why did you write so and so?" And so I thought, well, she's probably got a point. And another friend of mine also mentioned that, and how I might want to put some of my illustrations in there, which that's easy. They're already done, except that I ended up making some illustrations. But the fucking writing things out in long, like I never wrote things out, sentences and shit. You know what I'm saying? I never did that. So I had to do it. And the first thing I realized is I hated punctuation. And like I said, I was fired from school. So I brought that with me. I don't like punctuation. I hate, the mind doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And you don't think in punctuation, well, David, how are you, comma? That is not the way the mind thinks. And there's nothing new about this. It's just how maybe I began to discover what a lot of other writers did discover. Because, I live I'm kind of a hermit, so I don't know much about. I never read very much. I'm reading more now than I ever have in my whole life, simply because I have to read what I write. And I'm certainly not a reader. So I started writing the way I wanted to write. And so lyrics and the poetry and thinking as a poet started to interfere with prose. And now, after these years, now I've melded these two together, and I could read some of it if you want me to.
Sure. Yeah. No,
So you can see. I don't want to read anything too long here, so. Some of the lyrics I don't write anything about. Some of them I write a lot about. I wrote years ago a song called Death in the Mind. Death in the Mind. And we did it. It's recorded. But I thought, well, now, why did I write that? And it opened up this whole part of my life. Some of it I described to you when the band fell apart. And on that day, when I walked out, I almost committed suicide. So the song "Death in the Mind" is about that. Okay. Obviously, I did not. So when I started thinking about writing about that song, I started writing about that day. Okay. And what happened. And it's 8 pages long because it happened. The incident where I almost bought it took place behind the Kove. And in order to get there, I had to go through the Kove. And I started incorporating all these things from that experience. And it got to be 8 pages long, but it's written in this way that I write. Okay. And it got extremely complex because the more I thought about it, the deeper I went, and I go till I get to the bottom. And it got to be 8 pages long, and it's extremely complex. And I'll read you one paragraph, and I'll try to explain to you where this is.
Okay.
The commentary starts with me explaining to the reader what happened on that day, how I left the band, and how I had no idea the amount of stress I was under. I was unaware of it, and the fact that I was slowly, because of drugs and other things, was becoming suicidal. I was unaware of that. And suicide isn't always something that you plan. Sometimes it's an emotional collapse that ends in a tragic way. It can be within 45 minutes, depending on what state of mind you're in, so on and so forth. It isn't always a matter of being depressed for years and all that shit.
Yeah.
It can be a flash, like a gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I'm not going to tell you what happened, because then it'll ruin the story. So I inform the reader like I'm informing you, and then I return to the Kove. I go back there, and the Kove is empty because everything is over, and I go back into the Kove alone, and the entire building is empty, and then I go out the back and I go to the railroad tracks, and that's where to make the story real fast and simple. Yeah. When I was standing out there, I used to go out there a lot. I used to walk the tracks, take my mind off of things, just walk, you know.
Right.
And I like walking along the tracks. And the Kove was a special place. They had double tracks, 2 sets of tracks. There was a granary, and they'd offload grain or whatever. So I'm walking, and then there was another set of tracks along the river that was further down. It was like 25 feet down a wall below you, okay? Mm-hmm. So you walk over 2 sets of tracks, then there's a railing, and you look down 25 feet, and there's another 2 set of tracks. And all of that was caused by the river. Well, I used to go there and smoke, and, you know, look at the river. You know, it was a place that I would go. Well, I went there that day, and 2 trains came, one from one direction, one from the other. And as they were coming, I began to unravel and considered jumping in front of one of these trains. One of them was probably 15 feet behind me. The other one's directly below me. So I could have picked either one. I didn't, obviously, because I'm telling you the story, you see.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to read you now is after a very complex set of flashbacks, go all the way back to when I was 16. I take you around in this big circle, and now the circle has been completed, and I'm back to where I started, which is walking down Water Street to the Kove to unlock the door, to go down into the Kove. Once the door is unlocked and I go down into the Kove, then the actual story ends with the suicide. But before that, there's all this other shit.
Yeah.
Pages of it. And, but this is where I'm coming back to the Kove after all these other flashbacks, and I'm realizing I kind of take the reader back to the moment where it all started. Okay.
Okay.
Follow that?
Yep.
Okay. And here's this. I like this paragraph. Brought here, drifting rudderless by swift unseen currents, to the soft mother's voice of the water that called me as a child, to come running her deep valley, sweeping out wide beneath me on lush forest wings, below where I stood, looking out over from so way up high on that bridge, must have told that soul of that river to bring me here to where I am, back between the valley of her open hands again, that hold me up in the breath of that empty sky. Where I end up seems drawn by a river's vein. Ended up on this Water Street again, working one of those same stretched back basements under a sidewalk that still lays along the same line of buildings to this place I searched, the fires as a virgin, the Kove. So there you have it.
Beautiful. That's beautiful, man. Yeah, like, I hope you put that out soon, because I would love to read all that.
Well, that's just the way I decided I was going to write.
Yeah, but the poeticness of how you write lyrics and like is there, but then the narrative is there, and like it's very well done, just even with that little bit. So I'm excited to read the whole thing, man. That's awesome.
Want to hear any more?
Yeah.
I have 8 pages of this shit. Okay, let's see. Here's one that kind of applies to what we were talking about. I'm thinking back here to the reader. A lot of this, I write. I try. I don't. I have a special way I look at it. It's very difficult. I don't want you to know I'm there. Now, that's very difficult to do, but I try to, if I can't do that, I flip it into internal dialogue. So I'm talking to myself. So I'm making an observation about what has just happened that day. This is actually the paragraph before what I just read you. Today was a gray shot. It's all in play, gone. Come barely able to define what has brought all this that I cannot understand. I'm driven to do what I am by a fear of the alternative and a rage of desire that drives the need. Chaos and fluke have offered me an exit from a future of the past, and it's led into a life of it's led into a life cacophonous, which I'll have to learn to harness. This is possibly something I can do, something I might be good enough at. I lost my place. This is possibly something I can do, something I might be good enough at, other than running jackhammer or working behind that fucking paver, raking hot mix, dancing around smudge pots, breathing kerosene, standing in its heat, redoubled under the summer, rolling out anvil top, or caught in the sleet of November in the middle of a poor hook and reinforcement mesh with my boots in warm ether lace concrete, freezing my dick off, hoping for a paycheck through Christmas. So that's kind of like exposes what I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful because it's laying it out, but it's also the emotion. It's what you're feeling like, and as someone who's just listening to it, or eventually would be reading it, you do a very good job of putting the reader, and in this case the listener, into that state of mind. Like,
oh, that's awfully nice of you to say.
I work a lot on writing, man, and so I'm trying to be okay at it, and I'm hearing you doing it, what you're doing in your voice, and I'm picking up on what you're conveying and how you're conveying it, and like I'm working on being able to do something like that one day. That's what I'm saying. Like,
want to hear one more paragraph? Then I'm getting tired here.
Yeah,
but this is one of my favorites.
Let's hear it.
As I go down the street, finally I get to the door of the Kove, which is funny because when I first wrote this, I just went in the Kove, and then I realized about 2 years later, well, you didn't even open the door. You know?
Yeah.
You gotta write a paragraph. You have to describe opening the door. So I did, and it went like this. Wait a minute, I think might be give you a little bit of. Let's see here. I'm going to start one paragraph earlier. I'm going to take this key I hustled him for, and as I will do, steal that fire in the amber as I'm shortcutting in and out the back to the tracks where I can walk in solitude. Maybe it will help untangle this knotted nest. Tired of wandering vacant thoughts that speak with a muffled voice, and some inkling begins to flicker, blows out in the sweep of what I've cast away before me. All these last sore bones of winter have grown restless for a coming spring. All these signs still hang over me under the same bay window. By that ducked-in doorway left open today all the way up to the dark at the top of those empty stairs. The forgotten barber shop and the head shop are gone for the rendezvous. Orville's is now called Walter's, but the Kove remains as a lair for all that lurks in its basement, and I'm still walking here trying to shape smoke. Always too loose, this tumbler's wore out. Looking up into me smiling that day, painting this beat-ass door. It's Chinese red. That means fire and good fortune. What a little red-headed madwoman I've been left with, trying to love an all-consuming fire, like that nickname of hers, Connie Red. Elegance, left off this brass handle, is still there, even though it's been bent back from all those thousands of times it's been grabbed and slammed against the building. This goddamn key seized again. Lift up on the fucking door. It's a piece of shit, always jammed up, shut, warped tight to the frame. All this rain and all this cold around here, don't like it much anymore. Nothing but a lot of puked up fear. Who are these fucking people? What kind of poison lives inside them? Why are they so full of threats? Nobody is left here to trust, but I know one thing. I won't be leaving, and this door isn't going to fucking stop me. It's the only way in. It's the only way out. I'm going to tear it off the hinges and rip it right out of the building with the grasp I have on this place. You'll never take it from me. Fuck you. With all your sons and bitches, come out of there, you motherfucker. I want to hear you cry out. I want to hear you cry it out now. Raw. That's it. Come on out of there. Shudder like a diving board. Yes, that's it. But today I'm smelling something else. I'm getting the smell of a death rattle, coffin, dead, stale smoke, damp piss stench coming right up out of your miserable fuckhole. I'm waking up. You're goddamn dark, so it scoots away down the steps the way it always does when the door flies out and the day shows up and casts light that clings to the bleak all over that beat the fuck up doorman's stool, the dented empty cash box next to his ashtray full of burned out roaches of Eddie Sherbetes. But those are flip-top cools. They must belong to that beautiful woman, I bet. The one he's always talking to, the one he wishes would give in.
Wow. Holy shit, man, that's beautiful.
It is?
I think it is. Because every step of the way, I mean, the story that I get where it's coming from, and it's not a beautiful moment, but how you capture the emotion that's through every step of that, getting to that door, the red, what this represents, the welcomingness of that, but then the anger and the trying to take over the stage and find yourself as an artist all at this one moment, and how you described it, and how the whole narrative with it, man, is so well done. I'm saying it's beautiful from my perspective.
Well, I'm always interested, if you're a writer, to hear what people think. It's the same as when this book comes out, it'll be like that Jimmy Bell record. I have no idea what this is like in the outer world.
Well,
I read some of it to people I know.
Yeah.
I get the same kind of reaction, but I don't understand it. I mean, I work really hard at what I do, and I bring what I learned from some people. There were poets. There was a group of poets that lived in Kent when I was first starting.
Yeah.
And they were very unkind to me for the most part, because they considered lyrics like the cotton candy of poetry, which is certain arrogance that some people have about what they do and so on and so forth. But I did learn things from them in spite of it.
Kind of like what?
Well, if you get in a fist fight and somebody hits you in the head, you learn how to keep your head back, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you learn how to prize fight that way, that kind of thing. You suck. Okay, why? And then they tell you, and you can go, okay, now you can let that twist you up in knots and make you write a different way. Or you can say, hey, fuck you. When you write your poetry, don't do that. I mean, That's my favorite response. I don't get to have it anymore because no one talks to me anymore. You talk to me. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I get what you're saying. But because that's I guess the beauty that comes from anger is that kind of like, I'm going to use this to make this prove, you know what I mean?
What is that?
Like, there's this beauty that comes from anger, is what I was saying. I think it's like that drive to nail what someone's like critiquing you on in a way where they're going to be like, I see what you did, and damn, you're right. Or they're going to left turn from it and be like, wow, I never looked at it. But you got the win. But there's that energy that comes from that drive to do the thing. And I think a lot of times it's spiked by anger. And like, if you funnel that the right way, it comes out beautiful.
Well, you either funnel or you go to jail. It's simple. I should be in prison. I'd be in prison. If I hadn't had a few things happen to me, I'd be in prison. Of course, when I was young, you go to prison for smoking pot.
Yeah.
You go to prison. If you're caught, you go to prison. That's it.
Yeah.
Just for smoking it. So that was an atmosphere that was a lot more tense than it is now.
Like even with what was the poet? D.A. Levy? Like with
Yes, D.A. Levy. You know D.A. Levy?
Yeah. Did you know him at all?
No, I didn't know him.
Like that was his whole thing. He had that write that magazine about pot, and right, and that's why they arrested him, right?
I don't remember. Okay. I just know the name, and I think I heard him read once, maybe.
Okay.
I think he died pretty young, didn't he?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 24 or something like that.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, I just picked up a book of like a big book of like most of his writings. Because like, but yeah. So I'm not done with it yet, so I don't know the whole story. But
well, you could tell me the whole story. I wouldn't know it anyway. I don't know anything about it.
But I mean, like, so just kind of being around poets like that, and like I don't know. They agree. Everyone like has to have their own like hill to stand on and kind of put people down. But well,
that's just because we live. I mean, I think it's just a human trait.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, why would you want to be better than someone else? Because you don't feel good about yourself. So the more aggressive and arrogant someone is, it just betrays their character.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it gives you a softer opinion of who they are. If you don't get angry about that, then you're courageous. Because you don't get angry. You understand who they are and they're struggling.
Yeah.
You know. And that's kind of the way I look, but I'm 76, motherfucker, and I've been doing this for 54 years. You can't survive if you don't learn something.
True. Very true. Well, just even grow and be able to go from writing songs to writing a book, or to writing poetry. And like, I guess like, I kind of think about how they said lyrics are kind of like the fluff of the frosting of poetry. And maybe it's because you can symbolically sound out certain things. You know what I mean? Like where in written poetry, it's kind of like rhythmically placed and like you can
rhythm.
Like I mean, like when poetry is written, like it's written in a form in which you see with your eyes the rhythm of the words, and you see like whereas like with a lyric, you can kind of make certain things work with how you say it. Sonically.
I don't know if I understand that, but I mean, if you're going to write a lyric to a song, you're trapped in the music.
Right.
Or you're not, and you write a poem and you attach the music to it.
Yeah.
Which is a lot more difficult. I've done it, and Death in the Mind, the song that we were talking about earlier, is the first one where I actually did that. Because it's like they say it may be a myth, but I don't necessarily say whether it's a myth, but it's like most of what I say and write is a supposition. Suppose language has a rhythm. Okay, language has a rhythm. Language has a rhythm. Language has a rhythm. All you're doing is repeating the phrase, and the phrase has a rhythm. Mm-hmm. If you hear it, then you can take that and turn it into music. It's really hard, but you can do it.
Yeah,
it's quite a challenge. So you can actually take, free verse and turn it into music. Most cats that do free verse, they lay a backdrop and read over it. But they're actually, which is fine, but I mean, to go a step further, There's rhythm in what you're saying, just like there's rhythm in what I'm saying, just like there's rhythm in what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all rhythms and they're all phrases. And it's like, it's there. You got to pick up on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as opposed to like following the backdrop of what's there. Everyone is following the phrase, each one as it comes. So like,
Well, I mean, it's just something to be aware of. You can use it however the fuck you want. You can use it however you want, but you got to be aware of it.
right.
And most people aren't aware of it. There's a rhythm there in everything you say, because rhythm is just organic, just like speaking is organic, unless you compose to the strict discipline of Western music.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay.
So I got.
Well, I'll read one last paragraph and I'm going to hang up on it.
Okay.
It's just one of my very favorites. So after I leave the Kove, I walk out onto the tracks behind the Kove. Okay.
Okay.
So I've gone from Water Street down into a basement, through the basement, out the back, and I'm on the tracks. And this is what I see. Dry, wild grass of brushed up old woman's hair. This rusted steel. That's all that grows in machine oil soaked cinders left behind by years of coal trains still pass by here, carrying the sun down bright ribbon rail. Fast, straight out of your eyes, calling way off somewhere. The guardrail chases along after them, but it has to come heading back, anchored in the top of the wall. Fucking boot heels keep caving on this slag, just trying to step up here over the rail. The tie's all dark with black oil creosote, sweet like burning roofer's tar. Nasty as barn piss rising out of hay. In the heat of the day, out here's where they come close by. Those great, frightening beasts of industry, born by red giants, forged by searing rivers' tongues, wailing sirens, set free shooting stars of sparks, crack out, burn, and die, in lung-scorching stench and billows, the breath of steel, stolen from the mist of the green morn mountains, by the hands of those who live and die forgotten. All this comes out of the sun up above, there where clouds sail high upon the winds aloft. A past that must have been what may be approaching from far beyond this day has left my existence standing here in shreds, bound without destination or ticket, never lost, wandering where a road leads always back to here, to what I've been brought within me, lives a vagabond river vine that weaves upon wooden bone blood and vein of iron that will ping when a high sky's sun's heat fills the breath of angels' brawn voices' song till their lives done. They sing an oldest song I've ever heard. They sing an oldest song I've never heard, in tears to flood these anguished eyes with visions. Sorry, lost my place. They sing an oldest song I've never heard, in tears to flood these anguished eyes with visions sung to see again those ghosts got left behind in their labor. Tendons, muscles flexed, taut, fixed forever, locked, cast with an unyielding steel in the spine of a brute, forged and worked and made to rise alive again, to glide standing still, to thunder silent, just as the strength of this sun has no sound, moves the weight of another day slowly along the height of these buildings, tower in this lofted open space. Then, with the day departs into the vast light-filled distance, seems so far to reach out to forever, then comes rushing back upon the shine down these double steel lines to reveal the true end, stays right here at this railhead where their eternal visage begins to reappear. They return to lay the sleepers down in their cribs upon the roadbed, safe as caskets from a war. They return to line the long bar straight to gauge and spike it once and spike it only right. So no one dies tonight, as death always stands by the side. Death always comes to watch. Hey, kid, be careful there. You don't watch out, you'll stumble. It's a dead ender.
Beautiful, man. It's beautiful, dude. On a side, before I guess we wrap it, we mentioned very briefly last time Bumpy and a Pack of What I Am. You said it was a beatnik or a beat phrase. And
yeah, I'll send you a picture of what's going to be an illustration in my book. That's for Red Stick.
Right.
It's out of the song Red Stick. A friend of mine named Peter Blegvad, he's an English singer-songwriter, and he's artist and had his own, did his own illustrations. His father was an illustrator. He was in the British papers and did cartoons, and real great guy. It's a great songwriter. I worked with him when I was with this Golden Palominas on tour. He's the one who gave me the ad. He said, back in England, beatniks would walk into a liquor store and say, give me a pint of the Bumpy and a pack of What I Am. That's dead poetry, beat poetry.
Yeah.
From England. Okay. So I took that and used it, you know. And what did you want to know about it?
Well, no, I've been thinking about that a lot. And in just listening to how the cadence of when you read poetry, and I think about the cadence I hear when you sing, you're cutting on this fine line of like two different sides of you, which is really, really interesting. And I guess I was going to ask, was there an influence, or did you like beat poetry as well? Or
no, I always find that kind of irritating. No, I never did any. I never did. Because I just do what I do. Right. I think it's modern American poetry. It's not beat poetry, and it's been influenced. It's like this critic called me Dylan-esque. What an insult. You know?
Yeah.
What's Dylan? Ginsberg-esque?
Or Guthrie-esque? Or, yeah, you can keep putting it on someone else.
He was very involved with Allen Ginsberg.
Yeah.
Allen Ginsberg appears in his film, and you know, and it goes to the French surrealist poetry. It's just a different way of using images and thinking of images so that you don't think of things in a common way. So you don't use, there's a lot of things I've learned from other poets, certain tricks. Now, they're not tricks, they're tools, and they can stifle you or they can help you. And, you know, I shift back and forth, and I have a friend of mine who teaches writing and literature, and he's also a writer himself, and he'll punch me in the shoulder and go, yeah, well, why not? And it'll take me back and reorient me. So because you don't follow the rules, but you make rules for yourself. And sometimes those rules can overtake you and become stagnant because you're following your own rules when you shouldn't be following your own rules, because there are no rules. So therefore, you have to invent your way of looking at things. Okay, and there are certain things that you can do. Like I try to use immediacy as the goal. It must be immediate. If it's immediate, that means the reader is there. The reader doesn't have a chance to, the more words you add, the more shit they got to dig through to get what you're trying to say. So the more stuff you take out and get right to what the core of the image is, or what you're trying to say, the better. And I've just learned how to eliminate more and more and more shit. And but in order to do that, you have to destroy the English language. That is the standard English language. The most obvious one is to get the fucking pronouns out of your work. Get that there, this, that, is. Okay? These. So a lot of times what I do is I write something. I learned this from a guy who I ended up losing a lot of respect for, but he was a writer, he was a poet, and he wrote. He was like a newspaper writer, and I was just learning to write, and I was struggling. And he asked me a question: "What are you trying to say?" And I thought about that for a long time, and I realized what he was actually saying was, if you're a newspaper writer, you don't have a lot of space, so you have to be succinct. You follow what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's what he had learned. What are you trying to say? So you write down what you're trying to say. That's difficult enough. But then you edit that and you tear it apart and you take out what's not necessary. And the more you strip it down, the more you begin to see it's just poetry. And so I've developed a balance between what might be poetry or what might be considered narrative. So it's kind of like a poetic narrative. I doubt very much whether it's new. I don't think it's a new idea, but I do it.
Yeah. But it's an impactful idea. I think it's an impactful idea, because from what you just read me, I can follow the story, but also feel the story.
Well, that's the other side of it, which is what are you trying to do? It's a famous quote by this. I think he was French. He said, "The more you describe something, the more you destroy it." And most narrative is just a description. Okay? I don't want to describe what it was like to have a gun in my chest. I want you to have the gun in your chest. I don't want to be there. I want you to have that experience. So when I write, I try to do that. You follow what I mean? So, and it's very difficult. To actually do it, it's very difficult. You can do it. I think I've done it. My wife's really brilliant, and I read stuff to her, and she's my worst critic. Oh, not because she's being critical, but because she's just pointing out the obvious. Well, that's really great, honey. Do you want anybody to understand what you mean? Stuff like that. And that's... Well, I think that's part of it. I think that's important. But like I said, sometimes they say, I don't care if they can understand this, because I want them to feel it.
Yeah.
Like you say. What's really about it to me is, what does it feel like?
Yeah.
Not what is it. What did it feel like? Like I try to describe odors. It's fucking really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one thing I'm still not happy about. I'm going to have to go get a bottle of ammonia and sit down with it. and smell it. What's it
Yeah.
do? What is it? So that I can like put it on paper. Well, who the fuck does that? Nobody.
Yeah, but it's like until you really kind of analyze that sensory experience, you're like, well, how can you compare it? You know what I mean? Like that. I forget. I heard
If
it.
you say the word smell, it's over.
Yeah, yeah. You can't say smell because that's.
Well, let me see. Maybe I'll just take, if you got a minute. I
Yeah.
got one thing I did that I was very successful at. Okay, let me see if I can find it real quick. It's not very long. Since you're interested in writing, and I love writing.
Yeah. No, this is awesome.
What I mean? Yeah. Let's see here. That's a ways back. All right. This is, I'm at the bar in the Kove. Like, I went into the Kove so I could steal some whiskey, which I used to do. Because there's nobody in the bar, so I can help myself to some.
Self-serving.
The bar owner. Well, bar owner didn't give a shit what's going to cost him. So I'm standing at the bar, and I'm in the dark. The whole fucking place is dark. There's no lights. So, I light a cigarette, scratch off a flash, draw a flame to an ember, fast into ash, blow smoke off the match to writhe up there a murmur. The cigarette's frail pit lamp casts only suspicion of dim phantoms as it dies to begin again with the next inhale, so thick and heavy like white talcum when I'm this high. That moved. What the fuck is it? There's another one near the cash register, flash in the eyes. Must have scared them. They smell the burning. They're back there in the galley, rattling across the metal counter, hissing, clicking their teeth over the popcorn, rustling in the empty chip bags for greasy salt, the young copying their mother. They climbed up out of the river since long ago. They've owned this building. The dead places in here. Can't make them out right now, but when it's quiet, they come out from the forgotten empty dark spaces in the ceiling, crawling the posts, all yellow lit, matted, oily charcoal running against the wall, long-tailed, glistening, full of vicious, mindless survival. So what am I talking about?
That whole being there by yourself, and then.
Let me read the one thing again for you. That moved. What the fuck is it? There's another one near the cash register, flash in the eyes. Must have scared them. They smell the burning. They're back there in the galley, rattling across the metal counter, hissing, clicking their teeth over the popcorn, rustling in the empty chip bags for greasy salt, the young copying their mother. They climbed up out of the river since long ago. They've lived, owned this building, the dead places in here. Can't make them out right now. But when it's quiet, they come from the forgotten, empty, dark spaces in the ceiling, crawling the post, all yellow lit, matted, oily charcoal running against the wall, long-tailed, glistening, full of vicious, mindless survival.
Well, like mice?
Bigger.
Rat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But the question is, did you hear the word rats?
Not once.
Not once. I thought that was pretty successful.
Yeah. No, it's incredibly well done because it was every sensory experience of being there, and that's the immediacy, is being able to not overtly describe, like we were saying before, the experience, but put the right sensory experiences in so you can sense that.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But am I there? I am not there.
I'm there.
You're there,
Yeah.
ideally.
Yeah.
I remember reading pretty early on to my wife, and she said, "Oh, man, I'm right behind you." I said, well, that's a fucking failure then, isn't it? I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
So it's you know, and so it's a discipline. It's really difficult to do.
Yeah.
But it's a discipline. And if you're moving in that direction, you're moving in a different direction.
Yeah.
And then you eliminate yourself as much as you can. And the reader isn't, it's like, how do I describe it? It's like, I was describing it to this woman who wanted me to write an introduction to her biography. And I said, if you write something, you can show someone a picture of it, or you can put them there. So if they read, they're there. And they're there till they stop reading. Or you can show them a picture and tell them what's in the picture and describe the picture. So I prefer not to do that. And it's a big reach.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a whole nother layer of putting in there, of putting someone else in there. Like, because now, yeah. But that's so much more impactful as a reader to be put in there, you know?
Well, if they read it.
Right. If they read it.
They read it, they want to, and if they want to try and understand it, if they want to reach beyond having it described, I said, if I want to be understood, I'd be writing instruction manuals for assembling your vacuum cleaner. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, well, I better get off the phone. Let you go.
No, man, this has been great. This has been a lot of fun, Robert. I enjoy talking with you, man.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, man. And I enjoy the deep dive into writing, because that's one thing I wanted to, and I feel like we kind of stumbled into it. Like, I wanted to pick your brain about. So, thank you for all that insight.
Well, I mean, if you're a writer, I don't know what you want to put on the fucking air for, but I mean, if you're interested in writing and you're getting something from what I'm doing for some reason, then we'll talk.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Like,
I enjoy talking about it.
It's as of recently, I've been trying to get better at writing songs, so I started to check out some books on it and like open this whole world of sensory-based writing that I wish I knew years ago about. You know what I mean? And like, so I've been doing like a practice every day for just like 10 minutes to write, kind of like to try to write what we were talking about. Try to describe.
Well, you can always talk to me about your writing. You can call me on the phone and read me something, and we can talk about it.
That'd be cool. I've never done that before. It'd be a good challenge.
Well, it shouldn't be a challenge. It should be just something that we do.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, another thing, we got to do another one, man, because I still got more questions.
Okay.
I still got more questions. So
okay.
We'll follow up. I gotta, as far as like with the next month, I think, till the very end of it. I think it's
let me know. Let me know, and I'll have a better idea what I'm up to.
Okay. And is your leg all right? I read something that a show got canceled, or
I had to cancel a show a week ago because I made a stupid mistake, and I don't get around very well. I'm having a hard time walking. And over the years, for various reasons, and what you do if you're crippled up like that, is you begin to shortcut things.
Yeah.
If it's hard to carry something from one side of the room to the other, maybe you'll put it somewhere closer to keep it out of your way. Well, that type of thinking can backfire.
Yeah.
Because you do things that are unsafe. And you go, okay, well, I did this thing that was unsafe. I put my guitar case on top of an amplifier. It was actually a JC 120. I had two of them back to back. One is the one I keep here, the other one is I use. And you saw how big it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I put my guitar case on top of it because I have a table that I put my guitar case on. Are you interested in this?
Well, I wanted to, yeah, well, what happened?
Well, the table I put.
Yeah, sorry.
The table had stuff on it. So I would have had to pick the guitar case up over this stuff, a glass full of water and some other shit, and set it on the table. So rather than doing that, I put it across the top of these 2 amps.
Okay.
It was stable, fine.
Yeah.
But within a day or so, Bill, my bass player, came to get the 1 amp because we were going to be playing. So then the guitar case was on 1 amp. Mm. And I thought, this is dangerous. This is not good. And I saw what might happen in my head, and I didn't do anything about it. Because I still had the same problem I had before. I would have had to lift the guitar case up and put it on this table and something, and it was all right there. It was all ready to go. Okay?
Yeah.
So I took the chance, and I opened the guitar case, and I took my guitar out. And when I did, it changed the balance of the amp or the guitar case on the amp. So when the lid was up and I took my guitar case out, the weight of the guitar, which held the case down, was gone, and the case slipped behind the amp against the wall. And when it did that, it pushed the amp out of balance because it's top heavy.
Yeah.
And the amp fell forward against my shin.
Oof.
And ran down my shin and landed at the top of my foot. Which is, but I have edema, which is swelling in the legs. So it's even more painful than you can fucking imagine. And then when I went in the house and took my stocking off, there was a laceration where it stopped on the top of my foot. It tore the skin off my leg. So I had to go to the emergency room because I have a kidney transplant. And anytime I get any kind of a laceration, I have to have an antibiotic.
Yeah.
But the only place I could get it was an emergency room. So I went there and they gave it to me to protect me from infections.
Right.
Which have almost killed me a couple times in my life. So by the time I got all that done, and the way I was feeling, I just couldn't do the show.
Gotcha.
I'm too old, man.
No, man. No.
Don't give me any shit about being old. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you my best joke.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm not getting old. I'm not growing old. I'm not going to be old. I'm old. Old. I'm in the room and the door's locked. I'm old. But you know what the good thing is? There's a chair. That's it. You're not laughing.
Solid.
What?
I said solid. Solid.
All right, man. You take care. I'll see
Robert,
you soon.
I'll text you and we'll follow up, man. Thank you so much for your time. I dearly appreciate
All right.
it.
Bye-bye. It was a pleasure.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.